Hi, and welcome to the Reiki from the Farm podcast, brought to you by me, Pam Allen-LeBlanc from Hidden Brook Farm. I am a scientist, a businesswoman, and a licensed Reiki Master teacher with the International Center for Reiki Training. Each week in this podcast, you'll be entertained as you learn about a wide variety of relevant Reiki topics, helping you become a more knowledgeable and effective Reiki practitioner. We caution you, though, this podcast may also dramatically improve your life, and we are so happy that you're here.
Welcome, everyone. On this week's podcast, I am talking with Parita Shah about how to keep Reiki alive. Sometimes we get so involved in all the wonderful things and new classes and different energy modalities and all the things that Reiki brings us to that we forget about the everyday stuff. So we're actually talking about our daily practice, self-care, and we're going to also tap into some of the Reiki myths that might exist. So welcome, Parita. I wonder if you could introduce yourself to our guests.
Thank you, Pam. Thanks for having me. Yes, I'd love to introduce myself. I am Parita. I'm a Reiki Master teacher and an intuitive energy healer based out of New York, mostly seeing clients and students virtually. And I came to this work out of a journey with chronic illness. About 12 years ago, I started dabbling into the Reiki world, and that has, of course, transformed me from the inside out. It has led to a lot of healing mentally and emotionally, and we know that leads to the healing of our body as well. And as I went down this path, I realized that this was a calling. It was not something that was meant to just help me get over some symptoms. It was a calling towards helping people who are similarly struggling. And so I started teaching Reiki, offering sessions, offering events, and different ways of making this work more mainstream, more accessible. And so I'm really grateful to share Reiki and also chakra healing, intuitive development. Thank you.
Oh, I love it. I'm so glad you're here. And I have to admit, like, I get probably hundreds of requests, or it seems like hundreds, but definitely lots of just different people who want to be on the podcast. And many of them aren't a great fit. But I had a look at your website. There was something about you. I had a look at your website and what you were doing. And I was like, actually, I want her on this podcast. I think people need to hear from her. So thank you for making time to be with us today. I just, before we begin, want to let people know what we have going on at the farm. We have begun our Reiki business courses, but if you'd like to start, it's not too late. You have only missed the first session and could get caught up with the recording. So go ahead and join us for that if you wish. If you are able to commit to the next 5 months of working on either starting or growing your Reiki business. We've got one course for starting and a separate course for growing your business. We're in the middle of teaching animal communication right now. So this week I've got the level 3 class to become a professional practitioner, also the master teacher. Those are online over the evenings. If you're ready to go on to that, there's still space in the class. You're welcome to join us. April 25 and 26 is the level 1 and 2 class, and these are all licensed classes. And April 27 to 29 is the master class. These classes are both being offered in person and online at the farm. And so go ahead and join us for those if you'd like. We have Animal Reiki 1 and 2, May 2nd and 3rd. That's a weekend. And then online over 4 evenings, the next 2 weeks, is the master teacher training. And I'm starting to get excited about heading to Hong Kong in September of this year. I'm also getting excited about August. I'm going to have level 1 and 2 in masters, animal 1 and 2 in masters, and animal communication all the way from 1 and 2 to masters, 3 separate weeks in August. And that's going to be a destination class. We're going to take a full day together so that I can show you the island and we can go to Eleanor's Tea, we can go whale watching, we can have dinner together, we can go for a hike. And so I'd love to have you join me in Campobello. Come and see the highest tides in the world. And if you're not sure where to stay, we will have 5 rooms in our Airbnb, which is just a few steps down from the house. So would love to have you join us if you can. Parita, what have you got coming up that people might be interested in?
Yes, thank you for asking. And you have some amazing classes that all sounds really interesting, especially the travels. And
Mm.
I am offering Reiki 1, 2, and 3 online. So this summer I will be offering level 2, and later on in the year I'll be offering level 3. And I do my trainings as 6-week courses that are live on Zoom in a small group format. And it really gives us the time to practice and really walk the path between each class. We integrate the energy and the attunement slowly. We have some homework that we do on our own. Then we come back the following week with questions and reflections. I personally love teaching in that way. And I also have some online self paced classes, one in chakras and one in your Reiki self practice. So if you prefer to do your practice at your own time, you're welcome to take a look at those classes. And I also have a membership community for Reiki healers that is called Light Embodied. And we meet once a week, every Tuesday evening. And I offer a practice, either a technique or a meditation that will help you in your Reiki path. And I also offer Reiju at the end of the call. So there is time for everyone to feel empowered in their practice and then also ask questions, share, and reflect on their journey. And that is something that I've been very passionate about. It really helps people to stay connected to this work and learn new techniques. Some people have taken multiple trainings from different lineages, but there's still more to learn. There's more to awaken to and really heal within ourselves. The practice never really ends. So it's a little bit about what I have going on.
It sounds wonderful, Parita. How long have you been doing this?
About 10 years professionally and personally a little bit longer than that.
And
Yeah.
is it your full-time job at this time?
Yes, it's what I do for work, and it feels like my soul is calling, my purpose. Like I said, I've really gone through a lot with my health, and so I understand how life can really be challenging at times, and we really need the support, we need the community, we need these tools and self-care that really get us through those difficult moments.
I absolutely agree. And tell us a little bit about your journey. And you talked about health challenges, how Reiki came into your life, and then tell us what your daily practice looks like, if you would.
Yes, absolutely. So I was about 19 years old when I was in college, and I went from being a completely healthy, active college student, very ambitious and busy. And all of a sudden, within a few months, I was losing a lot of weight and losing hair, losing energy. I had really like a long list of symptoms from eczema to chronic UTIs and like heart palpitations and hot flashes, like really a lot going on. And so I was seeking for answers. I was trying to understand what changed. And a few months later, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, and I went down the traditional route of getting care and changed my diet. And there was really no medication available, which is in a way great. It was really about just managing my lifestyle. And I would say, as 6 months or so passed, I realized that I needed to get more help, more answers. And so I
Mm.
started seeking alternative care through naturopathy and also integrative and functional medicine. And I found some more answers there. I started to understand how much my diet and my lifestyle was affecting me. And that helped me to also get somewhat better, but it was a very slow journey. And through that, I was introduced to Reiki. At first, I saw Reiki as something that it felt very abstract. I couldn't understand it, especially at 19, having grown up in New York. And I was hesitant at first. I was really looking for the band-aid solutions. I wanted like that quick supplement or medication, that quick result. And as I started dabbling into Reiki, I remember the first time I tried it was at a Reiki circle. And so there was a practitioner that placed her palms over my head, and her palms just warmed up like a radiator. And that was something that I couldn't exactly understand. I couldn't make sense of it. But it was just enough for me to realize that there's something going on here and something is happening. And I wanted to just pursue that and try to understand what this mind body connection was, or really what this energy was doing. And so I started training in Reiki, and it was mainly all about how could I give myself a little bit of relief
Mm.
and how could I just sustain myself through whatever was happening physically, mentally, and emotionally. And through the practice, I realized that this was no longer just about me, but it was also about how can I offer this to others? How could I share this? How could I help people who are in a similar situation?
Yeah, definitely. And so how long were you between? It sounds like you almost started teaching and sharing it right away.
No, so I would say that when I started training in Reiki, for about the first 2 years, I was practicing personally, just on myself.
Okay.
And at times, I wasn't even sure if it was working.
Yes.
I couldn't make sense of it. I had a lot of questions, and my practice didn't feel strong when I looked at others. There was some comparison. But when I looked back over months, I could see that this was changing me from the inside out. And really, the healing is in how do we respond to others, right? Or how do we react in difficult situations? The healing is in just the grace and ease that develops over time. It was about 2 years later, I
Yeah.
started even giving myself a little bit of permission to practice on others and lead a Reiki circle. I started volunteering at a hospice, and that also gave me a little bit of confidence to start sharing this outward.
I love it, Parita. I think it's been a wonderful journey. And I often say, I think it's about how it shows up in your life because, of course, we all experience the energy differently. And I love how you pointed out the comparison and how that can hold us back, actually. Every one of us is going to experience it the way we need to. And it may look very different from somebody else's journey. One of the things I've noticed, I've been teaching since 2011, and many practitioners start with excitement, but then they struggle to maintain a daily practice. Why do you think that is?
Yes, I have seen this quite a bit too. And so I feel like a lot of my offerings are around just creating a daily practice and sustaining that. And I think one of the reasons why this happens is a lot of our trainings are short. A lot of Reiki 1 trainings can be just 4 to 6 hours. And that doesn't give us enough time to really develop a meditation practice or to go into the nuances of hands on healing and what may happen when you start practicing hands on healing. It's not enough time to go into the precepts or really the depth of Reiki. And so it leaves people with a lot of questions and a lot of uncertainty. And so I think we as a community also have to do a little bit better with offering maybe in-depth trainings, longer trainings, and also offering something like a circle where
Mm.
there's ongoing practice, ongoing education. That was something that was very difficult to find. Even in New York about 10 years ago, I thought that here, of all places, we would have more access to circles, but they were a little bit difficult to find. And so it's really important that we build these safe spaces, these communities as well for people to come together in. And if that practice is modeled, then practitioners will feel safe to continue. But I think a lot of beginners are just questioning, what do I practice? And what does the daily practice look like? What do I do in the morning, in the evening? What's really important, especially in the world where we have a lot of information, right? There's a lot of noise out there, but then we have to find a way to filter it and then walk the path. It's all
Mm.
about the application of it and the integration of the practice.
And spending the time and the energy, it does make all the difference. And I know what you're saying. I know when I first learned Reiki, my teacher did spend longer on the course, which actually was a deterrent to some people because they simply didn't have that length of time. Me and made the time for it because I had been seeing a Reiki practitioner for eczema and autoimmune diseases and fibromyalgia. And it was making such a difference that I knew it was important. But interestingly, even in the extra time, there I didn't, it was still all so new and so fresh. I really didn't come to a level of comfort with the energy at that with in the course. And then I felt like a Reiki orphan afterward, just because of the lack of circle. And she did do a few circles. I think I managed to get to one or two of them, but then it stopped. And she was a wonderful teacher. But I said to myself, do you know what? I when I teach, I don't want my students to feel like that. And I would be constantly messaging her, oh my gosh, this miracle just happened, and just wanted somebody to talk about it with. And she was like, yes, of course. But just, I don't know, didn't really have that. So I know that's been very important to me to have the podcast, the newsletter, we have a private Facebook group for people who've studied here, and then a monthly Reiki share just to just to keep that going. But even still, there can be, as you mentioned, that confusion about a daily practice. I know for me, my daily practice is Reiki every night as I go to bed, Reiki again in the morning, if I can, if and when I can fit it in, if I don't have to hit the ground running. If I have to hit the ground running, then I am incorporating Reiki just throughout my day in whatever way I can. And I've really spent some time figuring out, like, when I drive, I can do Reiki. When I'm working with the horses, I can do Reiki. When I'm gardening, I can do Reiki. When I'm walking the dogs, I can do Reiki. And then the second most important thing that I often suggest is trying to find a little bit of time in Gasho meditation, just with our hands together in prayer position, doing Reiki. And once again, I can't always find 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, just depending on what my day looks like. So even when I have a moment, I just go into Gasho for just a few brief moments, and it centers me and grounds me and just brings the Reiki into whatever activity that I'm moving into. What does your Reiki day? Also, I should mention I have Reiki animals around me all of the time that are doing Reiki. What does your Reiki practice, your daily Reiki practice look like?
Yes, I love this question. It is ever evolving, and I do have to change the routine often based on work or
Yeah.
different commitments, different projects that come up. but I like to do a little bit of self-healing when I wake up, just simply placing my hands on myself and thinking of the precepts, or just setting any intentions that I have, maybe connecting with universal energy or source as I'm waking up. And then usually I'll go through my morning routine. And before I sit down at my desk, I will do a longer practice, maybe 20, 30 minutes, or sometimes even longer, depending on what I can do. And that is where I will have my regular meditation practice. So I'll connect with the breath and do a little body scan, or bring some mindfulness around what emotions I'm carrying. And I will do some hands on healing. So it's ever evolving around what I feel called to.
Yeah.
And some days it's one of the traditional Japanese Reiki practices, and some days it's a little bit more intuitive. And often I will go back to a practice like in the late afternoon or evening. That's when I often need a reset. Usually
Mm.
I'm a little bit worked up by that point by something or the other, and I could use a reset then. And then sometimes I will do hands-on healing as I'm going to sleep at night, but really when I wake up and when I'm going to sleep, it's a little bit less structured. And when I am starting the day, that's usually like the practice that I really fall back on. I have to get that practice in every day.
Yeah, the one I get every day is at night in bed. And it's funny, sometimes people will say, do you have trouble sleeping, like with travel and stuff? And it's no, never. I never have trouble sleeping. I think it's the Reiki
Yeah,
every
absolutely.
night. I love that. And yeah, you're right. I do find I've got my hands going throughout the day, but especially that 3 o'clock slump. I hit a 3 o'clock slump and I usually activate my hands. It's way better than having coffee, I think. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and so are there any particular practices, self-treatments, meditation, journaling that you like the best or that you find especially helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. Hands-on healing is, of course, a favorite, and I like to spend more time at the feet or the legs just because it's deeply grounding. It gets me out of my mind and brings me back more into the body. And so I'll also focus a bit more on the hara and building up that energy in the lower dantian. And besides that, I also really like to connect with the precepts. Recently shared a chant of the Gokai on YouTube, so people can check that out. Just search
Can, can
Parita
you
Shah Healing.
can you share that with us now?
Okay, yes, absolutely. I can share the link. And yeah, it's a chant that will help you to connect more deeply with the Gokai, and you can chant along with it or just listen to it even as you're falling asleep at night. And so those are just two of the practices that I've been going back to a lot recently. But in this system, we really have so many beautiful practices.
We do so many options. I journal with Reiki and I love that. And I'll write out what I'm trying to work through and the solutions just seem to appear as I
Yeah.
write. And I love that. When you do the chant that you shared, do you do that in Japanese, Kyo Dakiwa? And is that something you would feel comfortable doing here on the podcast now?
Yeah, I can definitely recite the precepts. I will spare you my chanting,
Oh,
but yes, I do chant the Gokai in Japanese, and you can really feel the energy of the words, the kotodama.
yeah.
And so that has been really powerful in changing my subtle body. And I could feel the energy bringing me back closer to my true self, right? The part of me that is not experiencing worry, and it's just grateful. It's feeling safe. It's feeling connected with all that is. And that has been really powerful. Would you like me to
Yeah, please.
yeah. So we can go ahead and just get comfortable in a comfortable meditative seat. And if you're sitting on a chair, just have your feet grounded on the floor, letting your palms facing upward, resting on the thighs. And beginning to connect with your breath. Taking a gentle breath in and a gentle breath out. Taking a few more deep breaths at your own pace. Just allowing yourself to arrive into this moment. And intending to connect with the Gokai, the 5 Reiki principles that Yusui Sensei shared with us. There's nothing to do here, nothing to force. Just allowing yourself to receive the vibration of the words. Kyo dake wa. Just for today. I karuna. I am free of anger. Shin pai suna. I am free of worry. Kanshaste. I am grateful for my many blessings. Yo hageme. I am honest and true to my way. Hito ni shinsetsu ni. I am kind to all sentient beings. Noticing any sensations in your body, any feelings, and noticing the energy around you as you receive these words. Allowing yourself to receive the vibration as I recite the precepts one more time. Kyo dake wa. I karuna. Shin pai suna. Han shaste. Kyo hageme. Hito nishin satsuni. And then gently bringing your palms into gasho, prayer position in front of the heart. And coming back to your full awareness.
Thank you, Parita. That was beautiful. I think I
Thank
needed
you.
that. Yeah,
Thank you. Yes, we found our personal practice through this podcast. And I love that.
we did. And it's funny, I have studied them in Japanese. I tend to say them in English, but I just love hearing them
Yeah.
in Japanese. There's something lovely about that.
There is just a really beautiful essence that can be felt, especially in longer practices and when you let yourself either listen to it or chant it. And in the version that's on YouTube, there's a beautiful melody in the background, and it's also sung by a professional. So it's a different experience, but we're still connecting with the same words and the same vibration.
It is. It's a vibration, isn't it? And that leads me, that was just such a perfect little moment in the podcast. And that leads me to think about the fact that so often we overcomplicate Reiki. And really, the practice is simple. It can be as simple as sitting down with the five precepts and just being open. And in fact, that's what Yusui Sensei told us. Chant these words with your mouth and say them with your heart. And so, what do you suggest
Yeah.
if do you find people overcomplicate it at times?
Yes, absolutely. And I've done it myself quite a
Me
bit.
too. Me too.
I am someone that really likes to dive deep into whatever I'm passionate about and whatever I'm trying to learn about. And so I will read all the books, go through all the podcasts, and take all the trainings. I want to get it right. So I have really expanded the knowledge. Sometimes, too much, right? There's only a certain amount of information that we truly use and truly apply into our practice. And sometimes overcomplicating it makes it difficult for us to just walk the path and really live into the practice. But I think sometimes going there, it just reminds me that no, go back to the basics,
Right.
and what you were practicing all along is enough, right? If you are practicing, let's say the precepts or meditation, hands-on healing, maybe Reiju, or if you've received your attunements, and let's say you're connecting with the symbols and the mantras, then you are practicing Reiki. Like you're in the right ballpark for sure. And you just need to continue walking the path, not necessarily looking for more, right? It's not about more practices or who else can I learn from. And I, of course, encourage learning at times. But the last couple of years, I've been making it a practice to really just walk the path and integrate this energy into my life rather than seeking more. Because I've been in that place where I was also just seeking for more and more.
Me too. And I know that as licensed teachers, we do an extra 1,000 hours of training, which is really intense, and I don't regret doing it. But I agree with you. There's a lot to be said for just getting back to the basics. And I know one of the things that I did was there were times when it was difficult to find. My first teacher used to ask us to do an hour every morning and an hour every evening. And with three young children and a dozen horses and dogs and just other work that I did aside from Reiki, my businesses, it was not always possible to find those 2 hours. And then one day I said, wait, why am I limiting it to 2 hours? Why don't I just sit and figure out how can that 30-minute walk I do with the dogs every morning, how can that be a Reiki walk? How can I do Reiki while I brush my teeth? How can I do Reiki as I'm emptying the dishwasher? How can I do Reiki as I'm answering emails? And it is possible to just invoke the symbols, bring in the energy and do all of the things. And just on that line, I do notice there's always still a lot of people who worry that they're not doing Reiki correctly. And I used to be one of them. I used to be so nervous. Oh, did I do that right? Am I allowed to do this? Am I allowed to do that? And that really was interesting to have the autonomy or the confidence to be able to say, you know what, I am going to integrate it this way when I go for a swim or bring Reiki into my shower and all of those things. So, what would you say to someone who worries that they might not be doing it correctly?
Yeah, so firstly, I want to go back to something that I just shared, but I think it's worthy of repeating. And if you are practicing those five elements,
Right.
then you're really, really close to what this practice is about. And for all of us, I don't think that we'll ever truly understand the practice in the way that Mikao Usui shared it in 1922 in Japan. There are some cultural differences and societal differences, and really so many other differences that we'll never fully understand. But if we are, let's say, practicing hands on healing and we're trying to work consciously with the mind, let's say we're embodying those precepts as best as we can, then, and let's say you're working with the attunements and the symbols, then you are practicing Reiki.
Right.
And at the end of the day, if all of this work is bringing you back closer to who you are, or let's say it's making you a kinder person, if it's helping you to connect with your authenticity, then the practice is working. Some people may say that it's not authentic enough or it's not the right way, it's not the historic way. But at some point, I think our goal should also be that this just makes us healthier and happier. And even if it is slightly different from what was practiced 100 years ago in Japan. And I always put a lot of focus on trying to be authentic with the practice, but I've had to teach myself and I've had to tell myself that there's going to be some differences in how this practice is practiced in 2026 in New York, where I am at.
And not only that, but our in-depth look at the history of Reiki shows us that we can't say how it was historically practiced because Hayashi practiced differently than Usui and Takata practiced differently than Hayashi. So it started evolving from the
Yeah.
beginning. And I think one of the things about the ICRT that I love is that it encourages us all to find our own way of doing things and to develop our own style. And I just love having that permission that there's not set rules. And I think that goes along with the fact that it's all right to personalize it and bring it into your life the way that it works the best. We talked about some common myths or misunderstandings about Reiki and energy work. What are some of the most common ones that you've come across?
I think one of the most common misunderstandings, especially in level one, but even through the levels, is that the sensations are an indicator of the success of a session.
Right.
And
That's a good.
people often take the hibiki or the sensations in a biosen scan very literally, and they often think that their practice is more successful, more powerful when those sensations are really profound, and it is less effective or less powerful when it's very subtle. But really, it's important that we have openness for the practice. Every day is going to feel different. 10 years later, I sometimes have sessions for myself where I just feel a little bit relaxed and that's
Mm.
about it. And it's not always bells and whistles. It's not always colors or I'm not always feeling miracles. And there are some sessions where I get crystal clear guidance or I feel these really big releases in my body. But it's not fair to look for that every day because you'll hold yourself back from the heart of the practice. And so I often tell my students to look back at your practice over months and see how you're changing as a person. How are your relationships changing? Or how are you approaching work differently? Is your creativity maybe feeling like more fulfilled, or take a look at who you are as a person rather than trying to judge a 20-minute practice based on the sensations.
That you're feeling at the time. I couldn't agree more. I tell people what are your relationships looking like? Have things healed there? Have you healed your relationship with yourself? It's about how it shows up. Because even that 20 minutes that we're doing Reiki doesn't stop working with us when that's just opening the gate and getting it moving. So yeah, I agree with you. And in fact, William Rand has said, Parita, that it's when Reiki feels very subtle that you're doing the biggest work. And I think that's really interesting. And in fact, over time, as I learned more and as I could feel my vibration going higher and higher, the hibiki did get much more subtle. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that maybe early on I needed it as proof.
Yeah.
And later on I didn't. And as it got more subtle, at points I didn't even know if anything was actually happening during my Reiki sessions. And so I actually said to the energy, is there a way you could give me a sign that something's actually happening? Because I was getting very little hibiki quite often. And you're doing regular self sessions, so it is getting subtle. And so I start leaking tears out of both corners of my eyes. That's the sign that Reiki is indeed flowing, is that because yeah, it does. I think that's excellent. Is there anything else that you've noticed that has shown up as far as myths or misunderstandings?
I think some of us also tend to get caught up in what other people are perceiving in their practice. And I remember even the first 2 years that I was practicing personally, I felt like I don't think I'm doing it right because I'm not getting intuitive messages. And I would see other practitioners having visions or getting clear messages or they're connecting with like archangels. And
Right.
for me, that was a very slow progression. I would say that I developed those over a couple of years, easily like 3 to 5 years in my practice. It didn't show up immediately. And so I would tell beginners to keep at it because the true healing is not that you can see an archangel, it's that you're not getting as stressed out at work
Mhm.
or you're not snapping at the people that you love the most. That is like the true indicator of healing.
Yeah, I agree. And in fact, just that was something I was going to bring up is that you do not need to receive psychic messages to be doing Reiki. And I do sometimes have people say my session isn't worth as much because I don't receive psychic messages. And I say, actually, I don't want psychic messages. If I want psychic messages, I book a psychic session. If I want Reiki, I book a Reiki session. And so you're the practitioner that I want to go to because I don't want somebody's I can receive the psychic messages myself. I'm not interested in someone else's interpretation of them. For me, it doesn't add to the session. For some people, it does. And so, if you are a person that receives psychic messages, that's fantastic. I normally encourage people to ask for the discernment of what to share. And in fact, I started realizing, like, you know what? I don't need to receive these messages if I'm not meant to share them. So I started saying, please don't give me messages unless I'm supposed to share them. I just really respect my client's privacy, and I'm not really interested in learning about the energies we're releasing. To me, we're releasing a black circle or a green triangle. I don't need to know what it is in order for it to let go for my client. So, anything else you want to mention there, or should we move on to energetic hygiene?
No, I really love the perspective that you shared. It's very unique in the Reiki world because I think so many of us are looking to develop our intuition and we're looking to provide intuitive messages to our clients as proof that we did something. And many years later, I could now see that as like really a place that really comes from our ego. It's
Mm,
just it's us wanting validation and saying, I did something for you, I changed something, or this is the exchange for what you paid. And it's important for healers to know that you can do a full on session without giving an intuitive message. And that is also very valuable, it's very worthy. And it's just that we have to be transparent with our clients. If you're going
mm,
to give an intuitive reading, let them know what to expect. If you're not going to, let them know that this is a true Reiki session. It's energy work. It's not a psychic reading. It's not an
mhm.
intuitive reading. And so it's really just about transparency. If the client knows what they're receiving, then they won't be disappointed.
I agree with you, Prita. That's beautiful. Let's talk about something that's really near and dear to my heart, which is energetic hygiene. As a very strong empath, I used to go to the mall and just come home loaded up with energy. For energetic hygiene, I know I love Kenyoku, dry bathing. It's my go-to. And I love the emotional balance symbol for releasing any emotions that are not mine that I may have picked up, also for releasing any that are mine that I've already listened to. But I love that and I'm very diligent in between my sessions. Anytime that I'm in public, anytime that I'm working with the energy, I am usually, every so often I forget. But I try to be very diligent with my energetic hygiene, just making sure that I didn't pick up anything, or if I did, just releasing it with love. What are your suggestions around energetic hygiene?
Yeah, I like that we're having this discussion because I think in recent times I have heard that you don't need to have any protection, right?
Mhm.
And I've heard things like Reiki is about all of us being connected and we're all one to begin with. So why do we need protection? And I feel like there's a difference between protection and hygiene, first of all. We take a shower every day, not out of fear, but because it's just self care. And I think that energetic hygiene is also something that we just do out of self care, self respect. It's a part of taking care of your body, mind, and spirit. And we all do pick up on other people's energies, whether we practice Reiki or we don't, whether we're conscious of it or not. We are often picking up on people's tone, their body language, or you just feel it in the air of the room sometimes. And so there has probably been many situations in which you have felt the energy of a person or a place without even having certain information. And so if you can even think back to one time where that happened and you have that proof that, yes, I did sense something before it happened, or I sensed something even though I didn't have the information, that tells you that you have to be aware of what you're picking up on. And it does impact your mood, your creativity, your physical health.
I was just going to say your health.
Yeah. You literally feel sensations. You can even take on the symptoms of people around you. And this is not, again, to spread fear, but it's actually about finding your power, finding the authority that you have within yourself. And if you learn to manage your energy, then you're actually going to feel much better. You're not going to be drained by certain people or
Right.
circumstances. And I love the idea of Kinyokuho. That is often something that I do as well before sessions or circles. And sometimes I will even just visualize myself doing Kinyokuho if I am somewhere
Right.
where I don't feel like actually doing all of the movements. Sometimes I will work with some crystals like black obsidian, black tourmaline, selenite. Sometimes I'll work with sound or sea salt. I'll work with smoke, like incense, sage, Palo Santo. So there's a lot of allies that we can work with, but of course, most importantly, it's all about our intention and where we let our attention go. If you are distracted and you let your mind go off in a different direction, then you will feel your energy starting to feel scattered. I think with clients, sometimes if you feel like you have to uphold them or you have to fix
Mm,
them, if you feel like it's your responsibility to give them some outcome or some result,
it
that
can be
is
heavy.
something that really depletes practitioners, and you will start to absorb their pain physically, mentally, and emotionally. So we have to work through that mindset and really decide that I'm here to hold the space for healing. I'm here to hold a space of love, and I welcome miracles in that space, but I don't have to produce them.
It's not up to me, it's up to Reiki. And
Yeah.
I can't, at first, I did feel that responsibility. And we do that when we first start practicing. And I can't tell you how many times Reiki tapped me on the shoulder and said, "This isn't about you. This is between the energy and the client. It's okay." And it occurs to me, Parita, that I don't know if you do this, but one other thing that I'm very conscious of is that I get 1 to 2 Reiki sessions a month from somebody else. I find that when I get a Reiki session from someone else, I can just completely relax. They're coming at it from a different perspective, a different angle, and it just keeps me clear and able to do the work that I need to do. So,
Yes, that's
yeah.
also really powerful. And I recently exchanged with a friend just this weekend. She gave me a session and I gave her a session. And we both felt really restored. We both felt like we need to do this more often. So
It's
I love that
important.
you're mentioning it.
Yeah, it's important. And it doesn't need to be. I do get a formal session, but I also get informal sessions. And yeah, it can be a Reiki buddy where it's an exchange, but it is just so important to just turn that over. I recommend at least once a month. And I usually do more than once a month. But yeah. For a practitioner whose practice has faded or gone away, what are some simple steps that a person can take to bring Reiki back into our lives when we're ready to reconnect? And yeah, what would you say there? What are some simple steps to get back on track?
Yeah, I would say get clear on what time of the day your
Mm.
practice really works for you and what time of what time of the day, but also how much time you have to commit. Is it 15 minutes when you wake up, or is it lunchtime? Is it, during a commute? Is it right before bed? Often people who practice right before bed, they sometimes fall asleep a little too quickly. Maybe they're missing their practice. So you have to think about things like that as well. And bring a little reflection onto what aspects of the practice you want to focus more on. I've been there in the past where I had long lists of practices that I wanted to do. I want to send Reiki to the earth, but I also want to practice Joshin Kokyu Ho and all the symbols and the precepts. And we, of course, can't get to it all every day. So you have to choose whether Maybe you have a weekly practice or a monthly practice. And so just get clear on when you can show up for these different practices and then choose some sort of a daily practice, right? There has to be something that you can return to every day that anchors you, something that you don't have to think twice about. If you're left thinking about what do I practice, then it's wasting your energy instead of replenishing you.
Yeah, you're right. It shouldn't stress you out. Trying to fit it in, find the time and fit it in. It occurs to me that I'm going to include in our chat not only your chanting on YouTube, but also weaving more Reiki into your daily life. That's an article that I wrote for the Reiki News magazine back in the summer of 2022 when I just shared that I realized it doesn't have to be contained to 2 hours a day or whatever have you. Last question, Parita, if you could share one message with the Reiki practitioners who might feel a little disconnected from their practice right now, what would it be?
So, firstly, we're never disconnected from the energy. You can feel a little bit confused, you can feel lost, but the energy has always been within us from the time that we were conceived. And it is something that has always carried us through life. It is something that was a part of us before we got our attunements. And the idea that we might feel separate from it is really an illusion. It's just a story that we tell ourselves. And it's normal to sometimes question yourself in your practice and wonder if you're doing it correctly, or the comparison is something that is very real. But try to anchor into the way that you feel called to practice
Mhm.
and just give yourself a couple of practices that you will commit to for, let's say, 30 days or 90 days without switching up that routine, without looking for immediate results, and look back after some months how that has shifted you. How does it shift your work life or your relationships, your sleep? How does it shift your health? And from that, you might start to feel like, yes, I'm onto something, or I feel connected to this practice. And so hopefully that will be a great starting point for you.
I think that's great advice. Keep it really simple and give it some time. And yeah, Parita, thank you. I'm going to go and take us into a meditation now before we wrap up. And are there any last words that you'd like to leave us with?
It was a pleasure speaking to you, and really nice hearing your insights about your practices and how you keep this a part of your daily practice as well. And yeah, I think we covered a lot of great topics, a lot of great questions that I often get, and I'm sure you do as well. And I'd love to connect with the audience through my website, social media.
Include all the links in the podcast notes so that you can, Parita.
Yes, thank you
Yeah,
so much.
thank you. Let's go ahead and just activate Reiki now. And if you're listening, maybe you feel that your Reiki practice has faded a bit or life has just gotten busy. And just as Parita said, Reiki never leaves you. Even if you haven't practiced in days or months or even years, the connection is still there. So let's take a few moments together today to reconnect. So go ahead and place your hands comfortably on your body, giving yourself Reiki. And just sit comfortably if you're able to, and if you can, close your eyes. And take a slow, deep breath in through your nose and let it go just as slowly out through your mouth. And once more, breathing in and breathing out. And just allowing your shoulders to soften and your jaw to relax. And let the busyness of your day drift away. bring your attention to your hands and where you were guided to place them. Maybe they're on your lap or over your heart or somewhere else. Feels natural to allow your hands to move to where they're guided, connecting in a way that is comforting to us. Invite the Reiki to flow. There's no need to force or earn anything, just allow the intention. And you might say to yourself something like this: Reiki, please flow now for my highest good. And then just notice. Is there any sensation in your hands, hibiki? Or maybe you can feel yourself start to relax. Perhaps your mind quiets. Perhaps you've just simply become more aware of your body, presence, the present moment in time. Just know that however you experience the energy, Reiki flows where it's needed. Allow it to move through your hands and into your heart and through your entire body. Imagine the energy going and filling every space where stress or worry may have been living. Notice yourself softening, balancing, and restoring. And we'll spend a few breaths here, just allowing the Reiki energy to fill us completely. All the tight spaces, releasing any injuries, releasing the ways and worries of the world. Now imagine that the Reiki energy continues flowing beyond your body now. Perhaps it flows out of you and to your animals, to your loved ones, or even to the land that's around you. And if you wish, you might even imagine it flowing out into the wider world. A beautiful contribution of healing and peace at a time when the world needs it greatly. Take another deep, slow breath as you remember that Reiki isn't something that we lose. It's a relationship, and relationships can always be renewed with a single moment of presence. Whenever you feel disconnected, simply place your hands on your heart, invite Reiki to flow, and begin again. Take one more deep breath now. And when you're ready, slowly open your eyes and come back. And until next time, just place your hands on your heart Whenever you need or wish or think of it, invite Reiki to flow and remember that you are not separate and you are never separate from the healing energy that moves through all life. Reiki is always there for us. Even if months or years have passed, the connection is still present. Sometimes all it takes is placing your hands over your heart, taking a breath, and remembering that healing energy flows through us whenever we invite it. May Reiki guide your hands, calm your mind, and open your heart until we meet again. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you. That was really beautiful.
Thank you, Parita. Thank you to all the listeners. Thank you for the beautiful light that you are in the world. Much love to you.